Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin the evening's proceedings. So let me thank each and every one of you who made it here to NSW Parliament House. We are here for a very special commemoration. We'll begin that very shortly. But before we do that, some house rules. It's going to be a terribly interesting evening with some great words of discussion and also some certificates that will be given out. So any one of you who actually want to go relieve yourself, sit down at ease. I found events and pictures are always better experience on an empty bladder. So please make your way outside, relieve yourself, come back in if you want. There's water outside. And now for some housekeeping rules. I think I have not put my phone in silent, and I request everyone else also, whoever hasn't, to do the same. We'll enjoy the evening much better when we hear not the phone ringing, but people up here saying what they have to. So we begin the evening's proceedings. This is another first. NSW Parliament House has been host to a number of firsts for topics, events and celebrations from the Indian subcontinent, which includes a number of different countries. But today is a very special day because this touches upon certain factors and issues which are very relevant to the world today. Also not just on a global scale, but also on a very individual level. But before we do that and we start, it's only right to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we are congregating on today. This is the land of the Gadigal people of the Eron Nation. And also we'd like to extend our thanks and acknowledge all the leaders past, present, and the ones who are emerging as well. Thank you once again. And as I can see, everyone is now ready for a robust evening of discussions and also engagement. Why are we here? We are here to celebrate the journey of an enlightened soul. We are here to enlighten all of us with the teachings, the knowings, and the works of none other than Mahatma Gandhi. This has been put together by the Saroni Roy Foundation initiative. And of course, this is a global tribute that we're giving to a hero of peace. These days, the champions and heroes that we hear of are names like Thor or Spider-Man, things that come out of Avengers tables. But this is a man whose name doesn't sound as emphatic, but nonetheless resounds with the power of a beautiful star. We'd like to be thankful, we are extremely thankful for the Honorable Matt Keane MP, without whose support this event would not have been possible, Member for Hornsby, NSW Treasurer and Minister for Energy. We also have the presence of the Honorable Manish Gupta-ji, Consul General of India. And of course, once again, I'd like to repeat, this is another first at NSW Parliament House because it's the first time Gandhi Jayanti is being commemorated at the NSW Parliament. So let's take a look at the short video and we'll take it forward from there. We have a very interesting evening for all of you today. This is the second year that the Saroni Roy Foundation has taken the initiative to commemorate Mahatma Gandhi's birthday. This year happens to be his 153rd birth anniversary. And of course, that only goes to show that the ideas that he perpetuated, founded, and he preached still are relevant today. 153 years, wow. The average lifespan of a marriage these days is about 10 years. So you take a pick, there's about 15.3 marriages in there. So I think if we can marry and align our thoughts with the Mahatma's beliefs, we can have a marriage made in heaven that's self-sustainable on this planet. So without further ado, I'd like to invite on stage Saroni herself. We all know her. We've met her, we've talked to her, we've also felt the passion that she has in store. But what we don't know is the accolades and the amount of work that she's done. And it always surprises me how much women can actually achieve if they put their mind to it. So, Saroni happens to be the founder and director of the Saroni Roy Foundation. She's also the creator and producer of the MAHATMA Peace Symposium. She's also an Australian actor. She's never done that with me. I've always felt whatever she said comes straight from the heart, no acting there. And she's the co-chair of Equity, Diversity and Federal Councillor for Media, Entertainment and the Arts Alliance. She's also a very sought-after celebrity guest speaker and global influencer championing diversity, equity, and inclusion. She's also a cancer survivor and faces multiple invisible disabilities. She's also a body activist, and she's won the Miss India Australia Goodwill Ambassador title in 2018. And of course, she's won many other awards, including that of her contribution to TAFE NSW and community, to say the very least. But having said that, I've introduced Saroni, the work she's done, and the way she's interacted with ourselves and the community. But I think it would be only best if we hear from her what drives her, and especially with regards to this particular initiative in promoting peace and harmony. Saroni Roy.
Thank you so much, Karthik, for that kind introduction. Hello, everyone. Hello, global citizens. A very warm welcome to the Mahatma Peace Symposium 2022, a Saroni Roy Foundation initiative, a tribute to the global peace hero, Mahatma Gandhi. To start with, of course, I would like to acknowledge the indigenous people as the traditional custodians of the lands where we live, learn, and work, and are meeting today. The land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I would like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today, and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. This land always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I would like to welcome and thank each and every one of you here today, especially the Honourable Matt Keane MP, Member for Hornsby, New South Wales Treasurer, and Minister for Energy, our member host for the event. The Honourable Mark Curry MP, Member for Oatley, Minister for Multiculturalism, and Minister for Seniors. The Honourable Jason Yatson Lee MP, he should be with us soon, State Member for Strathfield. The Honourable Manish Gupta, Consul General of India, Sydney, and Mrs. Namisha Gupta. The Honourable Scott Farlow MLC, Government Whip in the Legislative Council. Steve Kalila AM, Tim Ford AO, Nola Turner Jensen, the MC and moderator for today, Karthik Mohandas, Deputy Mayor Karen Pensabane, Deputy Mayor Barbara Ward, and councillors for their presence today. We also have Irfan Malik, President, AIBC, New South Wales. We have Sanjay Deshwal, President, Little India Harris Park Business Association. We have Patricia Jenkins, President, UNIA, New South Wales. Media partners, Desi Australia, Arti Banga, Harmohan Valia, Pallavi Jain, Australia Today, Indian Subcontinent Times, Ashok Kumar, Pravat Fairy, Prashantika, Pachan TV, Punjab Times, and SBS for your presence and continued support. and each and every one today who has joined us to support the Mahatma Peace Symposium, a Saroni Roy Foundation initiative. Now, Mahatma Peace Symposium not just commemorates Mahatma Gandhi's birth anniversary or Gandhi Jayanti, but it also aims to increase public awareness and understanding of Mahatma Gandhi's vision of sustainability and real development. As Ahimsa, or non-violence, as a non-violent approach to foster lasting peace within and across diverse and vulnerable communities, thereby accelerating inclusive network multilateralism with vision, ambition, and impact, integral for a sustainable world. In 2022, with the world enduring the ebbs and flows of the pandemic, we would like to focus on the Gandhian philosophy and concept of Ahimsa, or non-violence, addressing multi-dimensional poverty as the worst form of violence, and its articulation in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Because we at SRF believe that inclusive and peaceful societies lead to prosperous economies. The Gandhian values of Ahimsa, social action, justice, and peace through non-violence have universal relevance today. And it perfectly aligns with Saroni Roy Foundation and SRF Creatists' core principles of diversity, sustainability, and social justice to create a more peaceful, more inclusive one world to live and love. The MPS 2022 is also a flagship initiative which highlights and showcases Australia celebrating India's 75 years of independence, or Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, in the backdrop of the Australia-India ECTA, celebrating and strengthening Australia-India friendship, or Dosti. And so I thank each and every one of you today for joining us on this journey of peace building. And we have the Honourable Julian Lisa MP, the Federal Member for Berowra, sharing his insights on this.
Hello, I'm Julian Lisa. I'm the Federal Member for Berowra, the Chair of the Parliamentary Friends of India. I have been the Shadow Minister for Indigenous Australians and also the Shadow Attorney General. I'm so sorry that my shadow ministerial commitments mean that I can't be with you for the Mahatma Peace Symposium for 2022, an occasion that we are celebrating the 153rd birthday of Mahatma Gandhi. I want to congratulate the Saroni Roy Foundation for all they're doing to help put this event on together, and the Mahatma Peace Symposium. One of the things that I think Mahatma Gandhi recognised was how multidimensional poverty can be. And as the Shadow Minister for Indigenous Australians, one of the things that I realise is that there are often no silver bullets in terms of closing the gap, but there are multidimensional ways in which we have to come together to improve the lot of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples right across our country. It was this insight that the Mahatma had himself in the work that he did in India, and it was this message, both of Ahimsa, but also of seeing that the alleviation of poverty is not just a straight line, but it requires an acknowledgement of the multidimensional factors that I think is so important in our thinking in Australia today in terms of making public policy. Let me wish you all a wonderful deliberation as you enjoy the Peace Symposium. I hope to be with you for future Peace Symposiums. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And now over to our wonderful MC, Kartik Mohandas.
Thank you so much, Saroni. A big round of applause for Saroni. 2 years in running, and she's still got the steam and also the commitment to make this happen. I think that's absolutely fantastic. The first year was at University of Western Sydney, where we held a very special symposium, and then we also had a play that took place. But this time around, I think we're going to have a very robust panel discussion that all of us are going to enjoy, and we can contribute towards that later on once the panel discussion is over. No Q&A, unfortunately, but we will make it very interesting. So now it's time to acknowledge some superstars of our community also. And when I try to draw parallels with the Mahatma's life, I can only think of one word that comes to mind when you say, describe Mahatma Gandhi. Was he a champion of peace? Was he the savior of the Indians from being oppressed under imperial rule? And I can say only one thing, he's a true rock star. That's what he was. The man with his meek demeanor and just with the power of his thoughts was able to inspire others, was able to change the world, was able to change the course of history through non-violence. And therein lies the key to figuring out how do we do things beautifully and with ease, with grace, and with a sense of awe and power that we can put on display that others would only love to follow. So, we have other leaders in our community also who we love to follow. And I'd like to call upon, one by one, some people who are shining beacons in the community for us. And we'd like to start none other than what means a lot to us expats and people of the diaspora who settled in a foreign country. So I'd like to invite none other than the Honorable Mark Corey MP, member for Oldley, upon the stage. And also he happens to be Minister for Seniors, to share some of his thoughts and words with us on what this means for him.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, a great honour to be here today, and I'd like to also acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands in which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. It is wonderful to be here today. I want to acknowledge my parliamentary colleagues that are here. Matt Keane, who's not here but here in spirit. He's booked the room. To Jason Yetsen-Lee, to Scott Farlow, to the many councillors that are here. I acknowledge each and every one of you, of course, and many others that are here as well. This is a wonderful opportunity to be here today at this Peace Symposium for 2022. And I firstly want to acknowledge, of course, my good friend Manish Gupta, the Consul General, the many sponsors, and you can just see here the support from many of our Australian Indian or Indian Australian community that are here, and you can see them here on the board here. In particular, I can hear someone's phone going off. Someone's watching the cricket. Particularly, of course, the Saroni Roy Foundation for your wonderful work, and I've met you many, many times, but the wonderful work that you do in connecting our communities together, and generally across not just New South Wales, but Australia and India as well. Of course, I can't forget Sanjay and, of course, the great work of Little India, of course, and it seems to be like we catch up almost every week now. This symposium also highlights many things, but also highlights Australia's celebrating India's 75th years of independence. And today we gather here in Parliament, and I think it's really important for many, many reasons. But we gather today for the Peace Symposium, and we mark 153 years, the anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi's birth, and a significant person, not just for India, but for the world. And as Minister for Multiculturalism, I commend the Saroni Roy Foundation for its commitment to justice and social harmony and achieving peace. I've seen the Saroni Roy Foundation many, many times, certainly in action and, you know, in what it's developing and what it delivers. Ladies and gentlemen, this year marks the 75th anniversary, as I mentioned before, of Australian-Indian relations since India gained independence. And as on behalf of the government, I really want to sincerely appreciate and thank the strong relationship between New South Wales and India. The Premier's first visit overseas was in fact on a trade mission, which was highly publicised for many good reasons, to India. And of course the growing Indian diaspora residing not just in Western and Southwest, but right throughout New South Wales. I want to thank the Foundation for your strong support for multiculturalism and the harmony, multicultural harmony, and your commitment on building upon it by celebrating our shared values and desire for peace and cooperation. And I want to leave you with two quotes that I have in my ministerial office of Mahatma Gandhi. They're in fact on my desk. And the first is, the future depends on what we do in the present. And the second is, be the change that you wish to see the world. And I think these are very important quotes that are on my desk, and they're quotes that I look at from time to time in this place. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you again to the Saroni Roy Foundation. Thank you to all of the sponsors and the media that's here from the Indian community as well. Many of them are sponsoring today, as you can see. But thank you very much, and again, welcome to Parliament House.
Thank you so much, Honourable Minister. We have on stage. We have a small certificate to acknowledge our gratitude for the words that you shared.
Oh, thank you so much.
I think we'll take those two quotes that the Minister shared with us, and I think let's ruminate on that and keep that in our minds, swirling around at least for the next 2 to 3 days. I'm sure it'll give us some light and path that we could follow as well. Thank you so much. And of course, time to acknowledge another superstar that we have amongst our midst. So I'd like to invite now the Honourable Scott Farlow MLC and to come share a few words with us, and then we'd like to acknowledge his presence, his words also, with a small certificate. The Honourable Scott Farlow.
Thank you very much, Kartik, and it's been great to be here with Kartik again. I know Kartik's been doing a lot of firsts in the Parliament recently, and there's probably no better MC in the Indian community than Kartik, so wonderful to see you again. I too would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and their elders past, present and emerging on the lands of which we meet today, and pay my respects to them. And to, of course, my ministerial colleague and Mark Kure, wonderful to see you here, and I know that it is such a great honour for everybody here assembled to have your presence here for this inaugural event in New South Wales Parliament, an important event as well. To my parliamentary colleague, Jason Yatsen-Lee, and the member for Strafford, very wonderful to see you here, and of course in spirit, Matt Keane, who is sponsoring this event and having us all in the Parliament. To the councillors assembled, I see the Deputy Mayor of Ku-ring-gai, Barbara Ward, here, lovely to see you. Usha, lovely to see you. I see Nella up the back, and I heard Karen mentioned as well. I haven't seen Karen, whether she's here, the Deputy Mayor of Strafford, but my acknowledgement to all of you. And of course, to the Consul General, Manish Gupta, and your wife. Wonderful to see you again. I don't know how many days it is that I've seen you recently. I saw you last night. I think I saw you at a function the other day. You have a very active Consul General here, and I know that his time in Sydney has been somewhat impacted by COVID, and all I can say is that I think you're making up for that time now with being at every single community event, so it's wonderful to have you here again, and you are such a great and beloved figure within the Indian community all throughout New South Wales. To, of course, Irfan Malik, the head of the Australian India Business Council, Sanjay Deshwal, the head of the Little India Business Association of Harris Park. Wonderful to see both of you here today and your wonderful support for the community as well. Saroni, thank you very much for putting on a wonderful event to bring us all together here to, of course, reflect on the Mahatma and to reflect on what he has been able to achieve. Now, nobody has been able to achieve more through peace than Mahatma Gandhi in the history of civilisation. There really are no parallels when you look at modern history and how somebody was able to change a regime and a country through peaceful processes. And the Mahatma is, of course, a living inspiration, and an inspiration we can reflect on the 75th anniversary of India and India's independence. Now, I'm actually reading a book at the moment on the last Mughals and Delhi in 1851, and there's actually a family connection for me in terms of my great-great-great-grandmother who came to this country is rumoured to have actually been a descendant from Zafar. And there is a reflection on the uprising that I'm reading about at the moment in terms of the organised uprising against the British that occurred there in Delhi. And that was an organised military uprising which was not able to achieve what Gandhi was able to achieve some 75 years later through peace. And when it comes to the model of Gandhi, and I've been actually listening to something recently on Gandhi, and the mark of the man. During the Second World War, Gandhi, despite his opposition to the British and despite his opposition to the British control of India, was actually mustering up troops and enlisting people for military service during the Second World War to help in the service of the British effort in World War II. And this is a mark of the man in terms of Gandhi, and the fact that even though he wanted to see a free and independent India, he worked through every system possible to be able to build up that reservoir of support and respect from within his people, and to ensure that through his perseverance, through his example of non-violence, that he was able to, of course, achieve the aim that all of the Indian people wanted, which was, of course, a free and independent India, and a wonderful, momentous event that we still celebrate to this day. An event that was achieved without bloodshed, an event that was achieved through the work of Mahatma and so many others throughout the Indian community who stood up and, of course, fought in peaceful terms, and fought through the presence of their argument, and fought through the presence of their spirit. And that is, of course, what binds us all with the great Mahatma's example. So I want to thank Saroni for bringing us all together today. And of all the accolades that were given to Saroni, I think the one important one that wasn't mentioned, I know Nella would reflect on as well, is that Saroni is, of course, the Strathfield Citizen of the Year. So congratulations on that. But, of course, your example throughout the community is one that's been there for all to see, and I thank you for your work and, of course, bringing together such an august group of people to be able to reflect on the life of the Mahatma and the examples and the lessons it still teaches us today. Thank you all.
Thank you so much for that. Absolutely wonderful words. It's not the strength through which we make change transpire, but it's actually the words with which we can inspire. That makes all the difference, ladies and gentlemen. The strong is not always our savior. The meek are not always the ones that need saving. I think that Mahatma embodies that philosophy very, very clearly. Thank you so much. And of course, I missed that one out, Saroni. Sorry for that. She's reprimanding me on not mentioning her connection with Strathfield. So, obviously a very deep connection. And I only have to do that justice by now calling upon the Honourable Jason Yatsen Lee, who's the MP and member for Strathfield, to share a few words with us. So, Strathfield it is, ladies and gentlemen. A round of applause.
Thank you very much. Could I also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet? May we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I have to apologise at the outset. I'm not very well today, but I wanted to come here to support Saroni and her foundation, not just because she's a mighty citizen of Strathfield. The best citizens come from Strathfield, but because of the values that she embodies. Congratulations to the Saroni Roy Foundation for organising this tremendously important event, and I think it's important for three main reasons. The first, as the other speakers have said, Mahatma Gandhi was a great man, a great man. He touched the lives of people at all levels, at the most personal level, changed the arc of history of a nation. And his teachings and his principles still guide, at the highest level, the way we talk about peace and conflict in the world today. And maybe it's a bit of an indictment on us that some almost 75 years after Mahatma Gandhi's passing, that we still have a need. We still have a pressing need for his principles and for his wisdom. The second reason today is important is, of course, as others have said, It showcases, it highlights the critical importance of the Australian Indian community and the contribution that you make to our country. And it goes beyond culture and it goes beyond food. I get so tired sometimes of multicultural events and it's all about food and it's all about culture. This is something much deeper. This is about principles that underpin a shared humanity, deep, impactful thought and leadership. And that brings me to the third reason I think today is so important. And I think the example that Mahatma Gandhi gives to us is an example about how we should live our lives with optimism, with courage. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek and what he calls the just causes, causes that are infinite, causes that are by all intents and purposes unattainable, never reach them, but they're idealistic, they're resilient, they're inclusive, and they're service-oriented. So whether it's the individuals that he's inspired, such as Saroni and all of us, the nation that he precipitated, and the global institutions that his thinking now around peace have inspired, it's incredible today to be with you to discuss an incredible man's life. Congratulations and thank you.
On stage as well, we have a small certificate of appreciation for those words. And well said. I'm going to borrow again a page from what Minister Mark Khoury said as well. I think multiculturalism being more than food, as Jason mentioned, is about neighbors. That's where it starts from. It happens to be the longest standing TV series in Australian TV as well, and that's why it's important. Peace starts with your neighbor. So shout neighbor, get to know them better, and live peacefully with each other. And of course now, I share something common with Mahatma Gandhi, the name Mohandas, which is my surname as well. But I'd like to call upon someone who shares much more about the Mahatma with me. And that's to do the land that we come from, India, and what it embodies, and the deep spiritual philosophy that it carries regarding peace and Ahimsa. So I'd like to call upon no one other than, of course, the Consul General, Honorable Manish Gupta ji, who happens to be at every event, and I secretly think he's cloned himself 3 times over. But having said that, Manish Gupta ji, Honorable Consul General of India.
Thank you, Karthik. Good afternoon, everyone. It's always a delight for me to be with the community. And as we all were discussing here, this year has been a historic one and a year of many firsts. I have been witness to several firsts in this August Parliament chamber, and I think this speaks a lot for all of us. I acknowledge the distinguished presence of Honorable Minister for Multiculture, Mr. Mark Khoury, Mr. Scott Farlow, Honorable MP, MLC, Mr. Jason Yee, Barbara Watt, other councillors, and everyone, and above all, the distinguished panelists that we have. I think that's the most important contribution that is going to be for today's discussion. And special thanks to Saroni Roy Foundation. Thanks for putting up this event together. I know this year we are in the 2nd edition, and what a remarkable progress from last year that we are bringing to the August Parliament House over here. Thanks to everybody from the sponsors also, because without your support, these events, it's difficult to organize. But for this year, it's really great. This is coinciding with the birth anniversary of Father of the Nation, Mahatma Gandhi. We also celebrate October 2 as the International Day of Non-Violence. For us, it means a lot because he was the one who made a seminal contribution to India's independence. A true apostle of truth and non-violence. His contributions is very difficult to capture into words. In him, there was a person who said what he preached. His life was his message. Above all, Gandhi was born in India, but I think a global icon like him, he belongs to the humanity. His vision is an inspiration for all of us. Martin Luther King Jr. has once said, if humanity has to progress, Gandhi is inescapable. We can ignore him at our own risk. When we come to look at the contemporary issues, I think Gandhian vision, the need, I think is much more than ever before. The pressing issues of our times, be it climate change, be it sustainable development, be it even basic the cleanliness and sanitation, I think everywhere he made a big contribution through his thoughts and ideas. In fact, in India, in the last few years, we ran the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, one of the biggest sanitation drives in the world in the last few years, and it has been a phenomenal success. But in today's context, if you see the challenge of the climate change, and especially the enormous damage that we have done to our environment, we really need to go back to the basics and his thoughts. One quote of Mahatma Gandhi has always inspired me, and he said, Mother Earth provides enough for everyone's need, but doesn't provide enough for everyone's greed. I think that is important. In the context of sustainable development goals, the vision is of peace, progress, prosperity, and above all, the dignity of the individual. That is important. And the basic idea of the sustainability agenda for 2030 is no one should be left behind. And I think this is the essence of Gandhian philosophy. In fact, this is the touchstone, and this is a touchstone, a lodestar for the humanity. So today's discussion, I am confident that we are going to reflect upon this, and probably will imbibe some of these thoughts in our lives to make this world a much happier, a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. We have you on stage. A small certificate of appreciation for you as well. And like the Honorable Council General mentioned, the earth gives enough for all of us for our needs. It's our greed that drives us to provide so much more. We are here on this planet Earth, and this is the last straw, the last plastic straw that we are standing on. I think we need to act soon, otherwise we face the brunt and the consequences of that. And of course, some more very, very insightful words that were shared by Manishji. And I'm in a fix now how to actually top a speaker like that, Manishji. I can only think of one thing. I call upon his partner, his wife, Nimisha Gupta. She's the only one who can top him, no one else. So I'd like to call upon her to come and share some words that she has penned with us and inspire us as well.
Thank you, Karthik, for giving me the opportunity today to speak for my husband. Thank you, Saroni Roy Foundation. It's indeed a great honor for me to be here today and celebrating 173rd birthday of Mahatma Gandhi ji. Mahatma Gandhi ji said, "Live life like there is no tomorrow." Gandhi ji believed that each day is a chance to give your best as it counts in your life forever. Make your present beautiful and the future will be blissful. Gandhi ji also taught us the ability to forgive those who have wronged us, and it is a mark of strength and confidence. Revenge destroys while forgiveness elevates. Satya, Ahimsa and Kshama formed the bedrock of Gandhiji's numerous messages to humanity. Today is the special occasion for us to rededicate ourselves to the values of Gandhiji. My poem, titled The Call, is a resolve to strengthen the legacy of Mahatma Gandhi. He is and will always remain an imperishable gift to humanity. I'll start with my poem, The Call. Listen not, speak not, and see not an evil. The three apes define the humanity, past and still. For the love of truth, non-violence and harmony, patience, sacrifice and selfless service with no fear or agony. Your picture on every sacred place is nation's identity. Alive, humble and gentle, the only goal is duty. Like a mentor, you guide us in this world of peace without hatred. To live and let live, with the smiles we shall tread. Actions worthy of the name and fame, practice what you preach is the end of the game. Spin the wheel or walk for salt, many a battle bravely fought. The fruit of labor, sweet and bliss, is what you always taught. From the Himalayan heights to the fathomless deep sea, the wonder human cast a spell and set our minds free. If a God does exist on the earth, I call upon you. Bless us with your wisdom and lead us through. The noble soul, you stand so tall, that's why you are the father of all. Known to the world as a simple man clad in khadi, with pride we say we come from the land of Gandhi. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Wonderful words. And a small token of appreciation as well. I'm going to actually pick up this poem that was written by Misha Ji, and it has a wonderful line in there that was so inspiring, which says, "For the love of truth, non-violence and harmony, patience, sacrifice and selfless service with no fear or agony." In this world, we tend to have less patience, where we only look at the speeds, download speeds, whichever is faster, we will go with that. And of course, as far as sacrifice is concerned, everything is available in installments, with easy pay, afterpay, or post-pay, whatever they call it. So these are certain qualities that we need to imbibe within us. I think when we look within us, we're able to make the outward, the external world a better place. So to inspire us now with her beautiful.
We just want a photo with CG and Sanjay.
We have to have a picture moment, so I excuse us for all this. We're going to take a short intermission. We'll have the minister and some of the dignitaries come up, take a photograph as well. Those of you who want a group photograph that you can take from down there, please feel free to do so. I'll invite the minister and of course Honorable Consul General and Sanjay Deshwan as well, and Nimisha Gupta ji to come up on stage. But while the picture is being taken, paint a picture in your head about a world that is perfect. I think that dream and vision is what we need to allude to and what we need to seek through our daily living. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll proceed and we'll have a short song that will be sung, a very interesting song. I'll introduce that later. But get excited and let the music and those words inspire you once the song begins. But I think if there was a takeaway from tonight, it's about the fact, how can we make the change? We don't have to change the world, we just have to change ourselves and make sure the neighborhood, the schoolyard, or even the backyard is a more hospitable, a friendly place where we can share and live with our fellow citizens of this planet. A bit of an oxymoron, but once we figure that out, I'm sure we'll have a much better place to enjoy ourselves as well. Thank you so much. Thank you.
See you again. Take care. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the talent is unabounding for, of course, Saroni. She not only happens to have all the accolades that I've mentioned before, but she's also gifted with people who support her and also with talents that she doesn't put on display very often. but we have managed to get her to exercise her vocal cords today and also surprise her with the talent that she has as a singer. So she will be singing a tribute to Mahatma Gandhi in association with SRF Creators. And her performance today is a tribute and to all creatives and artists creating a peaceful, inclusive world capturing the essence of SRF Creators. She will be presenting a selection of Mahatma Gandhi's favorite songs, which will be showcasing cultural and linguistic diversity. It's a collaboration between artists from Australia and India, and they had to obviously adapt to COVID restrictions and all do it online. But today we have the pleasure of hearing her voice, of course, live. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll stop talking and I think Saroni will start singing.
Thank you, Karthik. Thank you, everyone. As an actor, singer, dancer, and the connoisseur of the arts, I truly believe that art is a platform that showcases and also weaves together diverse cultures. It transcends all barriers and doesn't conform to the limitations of language, faith, geography, race, or nationality. If we look at some of the diverse ethnicities that have gathered here today, many of us have experienced war, conflict, and loss in our own world. Art and artists are therefore an integral catalyst in uniting people, celebrating our rich cultural heritage, and perpetuating a culture of peace and harmony. The first song, Vaishnav Janta, is written by poet Narsingh Mehta in the Gujarati language. It's a song which has a deep spiritual impact even after 600 years and will continue to inspire generations to come. The song talks about humanity, kindness, truthfulness, and how people should live for each other, understand each other's pain, and do good in the world, without taking any pride in it. Kindness, truth, and non-violence, not just in actions, but also in thoughts and words, the language we use for each other. Practicing equality, tolerance, love, and respect for everyone around the world. This way, we can all step in and do our part. So here's Vaishnav Janta.
पेड़ पर आए
Was sung by Mahatma Gandhi and his followers as they walked the 241 miles Salt March to Dandi. It signifies interfaith solidarity. Tagore and Mahatma Gandhi were great friends who seldom disagreed on issues concerning India. In fact, the moniker Mahatma was bestowed upon him by Tagore. So here's Ahimsa.
Thank you, Saroni. Saroni, I have a couple of questions for you before we let you go as well. So, how do you actually manage to balance all these things out? I mean, is there a multivitamin that you take, or spirulina, or what is it?
Oh, I don't have an answer to that. Of course, because of my cancer surgery and everything, I'm on a lot of medication. So I think the doctors are doing a good job on giving me all the medication possible to keep me, thriving or whatever.
We're extremely thankful to the doctors and also for someone like you who's championing causes like this. So thanks once again, Saroni. And for the performance others, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Saroni. Not just for the initiative, but also for the singing. So those of you who want to take her or whisk her away for anything apart from Gandhian peace talks, I think singing could be the next skill that you could put on display as well. But having said that, the road to peace is always fraught with a lot of pawpaws. There you go. So we just have to be careful the way we take our next step towards that. And for that, we have a very interesting discussion now. I hope this is going to be robust, it's going to be candid, and also deeply insightful, because we've got a very interesting panel with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to just give you the context of this discussion, and then afterwards I'll introduce the panelists as well. So, we are commemorating Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy, his teachings, and the value of those teachings in the world today. And of course, today we are far more connected. We are a globally connected community. A lot of the challenges that we face are group challenges, or challenges that we all need to take on our shoulders. It's not something that we can just say, hey, that's happening out there in Ukraine, or that's happening out there in India, or it's happening in America, so it doesn't affect me. I think these things affect us more than ever now. So how do we bring these principles to light and also propagate them and use them to build a more harmonious, peaceful and equitable world as we go ahead? For that, I'd like to invite our panelists today for this discussion. We have Steve Kililia, AM. He's the founder, Institute for Economics and Peace. He's also the Nobel Prize nominee and author of Peace in the Age of Chaos. Very appropriate to have him as one of the chairs. And of course, we have Tim Ford AO, who's the Vice President of Operations of the UN-SDGs and former UN peacekeeper. So this is how we achieve peace in this world today, is with strong armed rhetoric. So he'll have something very insightful to say. And of course, we have the best citizen, if he's not left already, for Strathfield, Jason Lee, who had to leave, as always. Strathfield seems to pull him more than NSW Parliament. So I think he's doing a good job for his electorate. We have Nola Turner-Jensen next, who's the director of the Five Bats Company. And also she's the lead for the Cultural Recode Project. And of course, with that, I'd like to invite Saroni to come and give her input as well. Who would know better than what the Mahatma had to say than someone who's been researching him for the last 5 years and has managed to put this symposium together for 2 years in succession. So ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for all our panelists today. And of course, we'll continue to pass the mic, and if anyone has something very interesting to ask towards the end of the discussion, please feel free to do that. So ladies and gentlemen, how do we build a better, more harmonious, peaceful world using Mahatma Gandhi's principle? And one of those principles is about being inclusive and leaving no one behind. If we are to survive as a race, as a species, as a community, as a society, we are only as strong as our weakest link. So today, where we see inequality on the rise, how do we bridge this gap? And how can we apply Gandhian principles to bring about more equity? So we'll start with any panelists who can give their input on how do we achieve this.
Start with you, Tim. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. And first of all, thank you for inviting me here tonight. Thank you to the Saroni Roy Foundation for inviting me to be here. I'm the United Nations Association Australian Vice President for New South Wales, and I'll speak basically on the background of the international side and what the United Nations does. May I also just acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting tonight, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. It's interesting that today, of course, is recognising the 153rd anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi's death, life, and it's also on the 2nd of October, the United Nations International Day of Non-Violence. And that day, of course, recognised very much the Mahatma. It's on, it was since 2007, it's been the day, International Day of Non-Violence. And of course, it's the principle of non-violence which is recognised very much in the United Nations Charter and the whole background of what the United Nations talks about. That is peace and security, international peace and security, and making sure where possible that all disputes are settled through a pacific way, in a peaceful way. And if you look at the articles of the United Nations there, right in the first two articles, it talks about peace and security, it talks about human rights, and it talks very much about pacific settlement of disputes. And the United Nations has continued that for its last 77 years. Of course, and lots of changes have occurred, and the United Nations has gone through many difficulties in that time, particularly under some stress at the moment when one of the major members of the United Nations, of course, is in violation of that, of the very principles that it stands for and has addressed in the United Nations principle. So I guess the point I would make is the whole principles that the Gandhi stood for are those which are very much the basis of the United Nations, and therefore the things that the United Nations is doing every day is the sort of things that we should all be supporting, because they support that whole idea of non-violence.
Oh, I thought they were excellent words. The Institute for Economics and Peace, we do a lot of work with the United Nations, particularly a lot of consulting for them. And it's an organisation, although sometimes criticised, is very much needed. But it may be auspicious, I'm not sure, but I spent last week in India. So here I am. But more than that, for World Peace Day, I spent 3 days with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And it was a small group, 25 of us, and about 3 hours a day with him, which is as much as he gives to anyone during the year. And it's a lot of questioning and a lot of discussion, but there's one part of it I think is really particularly important, and that's the concept of compassion. And really, the compassion's the basis for us not leaving anyone behind. So one of the participants in the group, and the group actually was 20 young people living in conflict zones who created their own foundations working on peace. And so these are people from places like Libya, Mexico, Colombia, Lebanon, Iraq, many other places as well. One of them asked the Dalai Lama, well, what's your daily practice? He said, well, when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is practice compassion. He says, I practice compassion first because that creates sameness. This is something I pondered about because he came back again and again and again and again to the concept of sameness. In fact, I guess maybe 15 times, 20 times over those 3 days, that's a lot. And so the whole idea of compassion is when you feel compassion, you feel the same for everyone. And then the way we differentiate is we can go out and we can look for the differences. And if we're looking for the differences, we'll always find them. But if we're looking for the sameness, then everyone becomes our brother, or sister, or uncle, or auntie, or whatever. But you get the idea. So the work we do at the Institute for Economics and Peace is globally focused. So one of the things we're bringing out and releasing next week is an ecological threat report. And we do this each year. But I'm just going to drive home a couple of facts. And this is where the UN really comes in and plays a particularly important part. So we started to look at the world today, and we looked at Africa. Africa is in a dire predicament. Since COVID, and that's since the Ukrainian war, 67% of Africans now are food insecure. 430 million of them, in fact a bit more, are malnourished. The population growth expected for Africa in the next 30 years, that's out to 2050, is 95%. Now, if we're looking, leaving no one behind, we can look at Australia, and I think that's excellent. But the biggest and most dire needs are actually in Africa. So I think I might pass it on now. I could talk on this for probably the rest of the night, but on to you.
Hello, thank you so much for having me here. I would like to acknowledge that I'm a visitor here to the lands of the Eora people, the Gadigal, and acknowledge that they cared for and protected this land for tens of thousands of years so that we can enjoy it today. My name's Nonga. I'm Wiradjuri. I grew up on my mother's country, which is out west of Dubbo, along the Galere, we call Galere, which is the Lachlan River. I work, I'm a fellow with the Indigenous Knowledge Institute in Melbourne, and my work is about identifying how language can restore cultural practice, but restore harmony to the country. It can heal the people as well as country at the same time. So that's part of my project. But in Wiradjuri, Nankawantu, Nadu Gamba Nalindiga, you have such a beautiful language, and for Aboriginal people, unfortunately our language was banned for many generations, and it's only now we can speak it again and learn it again, and I know that we have a lot of synergy with colonisation, with loss of culture and knowledge, and but we also have something very in common in Wiradjuri. We have a word called Garambala, and that means peace without conflict. And that word is our ideal in my culture. That's what we aim for every day. We put collective first, and we are born with the inside, we call it our inside identity. We have two identities, inside and outside. But the inside never changes. And everybody that is born has this inside, and it comes down from our ancestors, and it cannot be changed. And with that belief, we believe that the rock that the ancestors put there, the tree, everything should stay, and it belongs there. It has a purpose there. And we are responsible to help it maintain its purpose. And so as Aboriginal people, we have so much synergy with harmony, with the healing of the land and the holistic healing. We don't believe in problems, we believe in solutions. So we are solution thinkers. And so to pull out an individual problem and say, look at poverty here, or look at literacy issues here, or the elderly here. This is not our way to look, and I know that in India and Gandhi, you look at the whole. You can't pull these bits and pieces out and deal with them. You have to deal with the whole. So peace has to deal with healing the country and healing the people, but every relationship. We look at the world as like little dominoes, and you touch one and it affects so much. So I, as a child, learnt from the neighbour who was an Indian lady about Gandhi. She used to tell me about him, so it was just, I don't even know why, this is a small country town in Western New South Wales, but she had such an impact on my life, and I loved her. And she used to talk about Gandhi and his sayings and different stories, and it was just, it was a wonderful introduction for a 6-year-old into the Indian culture. And so I was so happy to come here today. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I don't know, I mean, all Tim Ford and Steve and Nola, all of you have added so much. So in terms of what in terms of this initiative and what Saroni Roy Foundation kind of does with Mahatma Peace Symposium is that each year I want to kind of raise public awareness about what Mahatma Gandhi envisioned this world to be like. And one of the things that this year I thought about sort of having a deeper understanding about would be multidimensional poverty that he talked about. So when he said, he talked about multidimensional poverty, he said that it's not about just the income poor people. It is about the poverty which is induced on the basis of discrimination, whether it is based on gender, whether it's discrimination based on caste, tribes, or color of your skin, or your orientation and preferences. So he always said that if we are to prosper as an economy, as a nation, we have to do it all together. We have to look into multiple dimensions of poverty. And he said that the worst form of poverty is discrimination. It is the worst form of violence. So again, reiterating with what all of us said here is that we have to look into the weakest and the most vulnerable in the society and bring them to the forefront. Only then can we have prosperous economies, and only then can we take a step towards eradicating multidimensional poverty. Say hi, Karthik.
Thank you so much. Summed up so well. Especially, Nola, you mentioned about perspective. I think taking a look at a problem with a fresh perspective will definitely give us a different result. And I think for the last couple of thousands of years, we've been bloody reaching the same result. Conflict, there's a huge conflict, and then there's a little bit of peace, resolution, and we have bigger conflicts that keep coming back. We've just got bigger weapons now, and more of them. That's the only difference if I look back even to the Roman Empire. But having said that, that's the perspective we need to address within. Which brings me back to something that Tim had mentioned as well, and Steve mentioned as well. It's about compassion and looking within for peace. I think the change doesn't come from making earth-shattering changes, as all of you have mentioned. It starts with the smallest step, about looking within. And I think that's where we keep going back to Gandhian principles. Applying his principles almost like a real-life experiment. Live Gandhi, don't pray to him. That's the difference. Having said that, we move on to our second context, which is amazingly important for us today. And why I say amazingly is because these days I spend more time with Siri than I do with my family. Artificial intelligence tells me what to do in order for me to feel more intelligent. That's the paradox that we live in. Having said that, I think one challenge that we definitely have today in the world is about consumption and sustainable living. I think we keep thinking we're going to consume endlessly. Someone knows there's actually a full stop to that. You know who that is? Elon Musk. He's headed to Mars. He's had enough of this show on this planet. So, having said that, we still have time to protect this beautiful planet and the rock that we sit on today. So my question now to the panelists is, how do we approach this problem and challenge and apply Gandhian principles in order to propagate sustainable consumption without sacrificing a lot on our lifestyle today?
Well, again, if I could start, I mean, the United Nations is giving us clear guidance on this through the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm sure all of you are aware that in 2015, following on from the Millennium Development Goals, which were not terribly successfully met, all 193 member states of the United Nations came together and agreed the Sustainability Development Goals and the plan for 2030. And those 17 goals touch on all those things which we're concerned about with the environment and the world. Really, the fact that there is no plan B because there's no planet B. We have to follow the Sustainability Development Goals, and each country is meant to have signed up a plan to meet each of those goals and the multitude of targets that are listed below them. And I've got to say that many countries are nowhere near meeting those goals. And in particular, Australia is well behind where it should be on meeting those goals. We're hoping that will change and as pressure builds up. But we're all talking about climate, but there's much more than that. The Sustainability Development Goals cover everything from poverty to equality, to the water, to life. Have a look at them. Peace and security institutions, they lay down quite clearly goals for every country to attempt to meet, and targets, and that's certainly on the international level. Now, I'd also just like to mention something very much at the local level, and that is, I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's a documentary going around at the moment, which I saw last night, called The Franklin. And it's a documentary about a great campaign of non-violence that was taken in Tasmania during the 1980s to prevent the damming of the Franklin River, which was one of the last of the wild rivers. At that stage, Tasmania was very much into hydroelectricity and in damming all the rivers in Tasmania to create electricity. And the government was very much pushing this, but there are people who recognise that these rivers, when dammed, were no longer in their natural state. And there was a great campaign that built up over 2 or 3 years to try and prevent the damming, particularly of the River Franklin. Which ended up with a High Court challenge and an agreement by the High Court that they could not go ahead and finish damming the Franklin. I'd recommend, if you have a moment, to see this documentary, which is in Sydney at the moment. And the interesting thing about it is that the many people who got together to prevent who ran that campaign, based it on non-violence. They actually trained themselves in non-violence. What will happen when the bulldozers come? What will happen when the boats try and cross our lines? They actually got together and went through it all. They really had to think it out. So they were then doing this for the climate, so the environment. So the environment is critical, and as I say, the United Nations gives lead on that through the Sustainable Development Goals. And in Australia, we have many good examples personally, such as the Franklin campaign, about trying to do it ourselves as well.
So I think I'll open with one shocking statistic. So if you looked at the biomass of all mammals on the planet, we're just talking the biomass of all mammals on the planet, 60% of them's livestock, 36% is human, and the other 4% is other mammals. Now, for sustainability to happen, and we really are looking at biodiversity, there has to be a massive reduction in one of those three. So less meat, and that's one of the things that India is certainly good at, with the number of people within the country that consumes less meat than any other country in the world. So now if we reduced our consumption of meat by 50%, that would create 30% more slack in those numbers, which then, if it was used in areas now which you could create forests and bush and parklands, and jungles, you'd now be able to increase the biodiversity and that percentage of biomass of mammals on the planet. So that'd be one good way of starting. But what I would say, with 7 billion people on the planet, moving to 10 billion by 2050, the planet is unsustainable. We need less people, and that's the key to it. But the beautiful thing is that it's achievable. Now, we all realise that in places like Europe, the population is shrinking. Australia, depending on the years, basically break even or slightly shrinking without immigration. But China, at this stage in time, for every woman, has 1.3 children. And that's a massive reduction there. And something which I imagine not many of the Indians in this room know either, that just recently, India's birth rate was below its replacement rate. So India, now 60 years from now, will be much more sustainable than what it is. And I'll come back to what I mentioned earlier on. There are only a few pockets in the world now where you've got race-away population. Africa's one of them. And I'll repeat the stat from earlier on. By 2050, the population of Africa will increase by 95%. You've got 12 countries will increase by over 100%, with Nigeria having the largest increase of 161%. So we want sustainability. That's a great area to focus. Now, we come back just the concept of mindful consumption. What does actually mindful consumption mean? In an age driven by marketing, it's very, very hard to have mindful consumption. Most consumption is mindless. I've owned 2 houses, and I've got my daughter will stay in one of them with her 4 kids at the moment, and her husband, while they renovate their house, and that's great. So I've got these 4 grandkids over. Now, I watch them, and the consumption's mindless, absolutely mindless. So how do we actually get to a state where people will consume from a more mindful perspective? It really lies in a change in advertising. What we advertise, what we don't advertise. One of the things I'll put up as a proposition, because obviously advertising is important, we need to know what's there, don't we? But we have a concept of truth in advertising that would remove a lot of the emotional bias which is created through advertising. The other thing I'd say is GDP. GDP is based, improves around consumption. So the more we consume, the bigger GDP becomes. And so there's a lot of faults with GDP. The first one is that it only counts what we consume. So if I burn down someone's house in this room, that'd be great for GDP, because you're going to increase the consumption to actually rebuild your house, but it's of no benefit to the individual or to society, but it is good for GDP. So it doesn't have a concept of a capital account, it only has a concept of consumption. But also, within that consumption, it counts the things which are bad. So it'll count our alcohol consumption, it'll count the money we spend on eating junk food, it'll count gambling and many, many other forms of ill as well. It'll count crime, so the money we spend on crime, stopping crime, incarcerating people is a positive for GDP. So different ways of being able to measure GDP, so you're taking a capital account, and that could be the total value of all infrastructure in the country, but also something which counts the environment as well. So now I could keep going on, because there are 7 or 8 more concepts on this, but I think it's time to pass it on.
I don't know much about the GDP and the statistics, but from an Aboriginal perspective, we have sustained this country longer than anyone else in the world. We're the oldest continuing culture on the planet. And therefore we have much to offer the world as far as collective first, kinship, sustainability, and our knowledge about how to sustain this biodiversity that was unique to this country, with many unique animals and plants, and our knowledge that we gained on our local area, because our economy, our employment was localised, not globalised, localised. And we had to care and protect our grandmother's country. And that was our employment for all our life. And that was what we were born to do, and that's what we died doing. And that 200 to 400 square miles of land that was inherited through the women in my family. That was our employment. Every day we got up to care for a specific food, animal or plant, and we couldn't eat it. Other people, that was for other people to eat, but we couldn't. We were there to protect its environment and its habitat and make it healthy. But what we had for this country and what we still have is responsibility to it. A responsibility to understand our kinship relationships. And the more relationships we understood, the more secure we felt. So we were born, and our layers of knowledge was about the environment and how it was given by our ancestors, how it works, how that bird is a moral, teaches morals to the children, how that plant gives us so many things. And when you think of water, for example, we in Wiradjuri on its own, we have over 74 different names for water. Because in our language, it's not, oh, there's a creek, that's a creek over there, that's a river. No, we explain the purpose. We took a snapshot in time of that particular river. And one of my favourite words in Wiradjuri is gudda. And gudda means glitter on the water. Because you know at times when you see the sun hit the water, it glitters. And so we have a word for that. So we have so many words for water because it is life. And all our durays, which is our mother's country, were attached to water. And that was part of our symbolism all our life. Responsibility is something that's severely lacking in a colonised country, in that many of the Australian children or people that come to this country do not even know about our precious animals and plants and geography. They will know about an elephant or a panda, but do they know about a numbat or a rat kangaroo or any of these beautiful native animals that are so unique to this country? So we are not educating our children to connect, to have knowledge, have such a role to play in restoring that understanding, to get that responsibility back so that these children will look up from their iPads and iPhones and whatever they've got and start understanding the beautiful environment where they live.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nola, Tim, Steve. All of you have said shared such wonderful insights. All I would like to say is probably something that Mahatma Gandhi talked about when it comes to our relationship with the planet and mindful consumption and protecting the environment. Is the earth, the air, the land and the water are not an inheritance from our forefathers, but on loan from our children. So we have to hand over to them at least as it was handed over to us. I think that perfectly aligns with what Nola was talking about, the deeper connection with the environment that we have. I would also like to sort of talk about the key takeaways that when I was listening to everyone here, and also in terms of what Mahatma Gandhi talked about in terms of Sarvodaya, or the idea of sustainability and real development, the economic and social development of a community as a whole. He also talked about something in terms of the idea of solidarity and global partnerships. We cannot survive crisis without global multilateral partnerships. So I think my key takeaways here, and for every one of us from what we discussed here, would be the 5 Ps for peace building, which is people, leave no one behind. and to create more inclusive societies, and peace, or Ahimsa, or non-violence, and giving people more agency and empowerment that we call. The planet, our relationship with the planet, mindful consumption, and protecting the environment, which is so essential. And we did talk about multidimensional poverty. Our economy would not prosper without looking into what the weakest and the most vulnerable in the communities need from us and how we can help them get to the forefront. And of course, partnership, significance of collaboration on network multilateralism in times of crisis, a shared responsibility or global solidarity. Because I really feel that, I think we all talked about this, that it is not, we always try to sort of blame, other organizations. But then it is an individual responsibility. It is a team effort, yes, but it is an individual responsibility to create a better world around you. Like, for example, the pandemic, we could not have survived it and moved on or carried on or be here today after 3 years of what we went through if we did not have multilateralism and multilateral partnerships with our neighboring countries, and if we did not have good relations with all our neighboring countries and nations, and we help each other. So yeah, I think, Karthik, I will move on to you.
Saroni, thank you so much for that. You've pretty much given us the 5 Ps, or the key takeaways from what the panelists discussed today. We can continue to go on, but we are running a bit short on time as well. So having said that, there are some other takeaways, slightly more easier in the express checkout counter side, without getting into the deep and heavy. What do we do, to build a more sustainable planet and a community? Number 1, like I said, reduce the amount of meat that you consume. It has health benefits also. It will reduce your cholesterol. It's going to open up your arteries. It's going to make you feel more active. And guess what? Bessie's going to thank you as well. So, having said that, there's some fantastic recipes out there on YouTube as well. Indian recipes, great curries that you can Google and you'll find that. Number 2 is obviously your relationship with your neighbors, your family, and your cell phone. Reduce the cell phone relationship slightly, I guess. Increase the one with yourself and your family a little more, and you'll find more answers there. Third, of course, is having said that, GDP ain't everything. If someone tells you that money is going to make you happy, go tell him to. He'll say, I can buy a stand-up comic ticket, go there, laugh for a few hours, come back. But that's not the laughter and happiness that you feel from within. So try and figure that out. Money is not going to buy you, it can buy your bed, but it won't buy you sleep. It can cure your ailment, but it's not going to give you holistic health. So the answer lies somewhere else. We need to figure that out, and maybe Bhutan is a country that we can take a page out of that has a happiness index as opposed to a GDP domestic product index. Something to think about. And of course the UN. The UN is like Apple's software update contract, It's fantastic, it's long, it's comprehensive, but I never get the answer that I'm looking for. It takes me such a long time. So we do need leadership from the UN, but we need to go through all the T's and C's, terms and conditions as well, just like the Apple contract, to make sure we understand what we're getting into, and we can also give, as global citizens, a commitment to those causes which we need today in the world. As mentioned, there are some members of the UN who have gone against the very charter and the principles that it stands for. So that's a gross violation. But having said that, I think this is not about violation. Tonight is about non-violence and ahimsa. So let's stay on that note. We'd like to end this very robust discussion. Thank you so much for your insights. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. I'd ask all the panelists to sit down. I'd also like to call upon our Honorable CG, Manish Gupta ji, to come and help Saroni give some certificates of appreciation to our esteemed panelists here. And after that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to an end for the proceedings in the theaterette today evening. Having said that, we'll all collect outside. because it's my favorite time, and I'm sure many other people's favorite time, which is selfie time. So, and of course photograph times. So we can go and capture some great memories of tonight. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. A big round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed panelists who shared their views and thoughts with us today, I'm extremely grateful and thankful to them for that. And I've got one or two principles I'm going to apply, which is stop buying plastic bottled water at least, and go for WAS, the glass ones. I'll get mine later, Saroni. Thank you so much. But after the Honorable CG, I'd like to call upon his wife, obviously. Where the sun shines, the moon can't be far behind, because she will help in giving certificates and mementos to our esteemed sponsors, without whom this would not have been possible. So we'll begin with our sponsors. Of course, if I could have BSI Learning, Purnima Menon from 5 Pleats, and Divya Kumar Soneji from Pixel Designs. If I could have 3 of you here, please. Thank you for supporting the foundation and its efforts. Without these sponsors, very little would have been possible, or we would have only done this online. So thank you once again. There you go.
I just want to say 2 words. When Saroni reached out to me and asked about sponsorship for the Gandhi Peace Symposium, 5 Pleats was born out of what Gandhiji spoke about, handmade. So everything 5 Pleats does is promoting the handloom weavers in India, and everything that comes from 5 Pleats is handmade. And the sari that I'm wearing today, I took a special trouble to choose this sari. It's a hand-spun khadi sari, which Gandhiji was very, famous for. And the painting is hand-painted. So I made an effort that, I'm coming to a Gandhi Peace Symposium. He always said, walk your talk. And this is my small contribution. Thank you.
I'd like to invite Jaydeep from Signature Training and Ashish Verma from Ash Designs on stage, please. Thank you so much for your support. I'd like to invite Paul McKinsey from ABS Conveyancing and Poonam Gaur and Manoj Nanda from B2B. Those friends, once again, this wouldn't have been possible without our sponsors. They continue to make evenings like this happen. So the Saroni Roy Foundation is deeply indebted to them and also elicits their support as she proceeds on to year number 3 with this great initiative. And of course now for the volunteers who made me sound good and Saroni look good and made the place presentable as well. Without their support, this definitely is not possible. They are the backbone, the vertebral column of this human machine that's moving forward. So I'd like to invite all the volunteers on stage, if you could just come. Mehboob Ali, Kamala Pasha, Fatima Parvez, Adarsh, Joel, and anyone that I've missed out as well, please do make your way onto stage, and thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. These volunteers are pro bono, and of course they've been working tirelessly for the last 8 weeks or more in order to make sure that the right panelists have been selected, the audiovisual goes up on time, the chairs come up here invisibly almost, and of course the way I actually have a very squeaky voice and they made me sound like the way I do today. And of course, there are a few more people that I'd like to call out. Indranil Harda, of course, Harmohan Walia ji, who's always everywhere capturing moments with his camera. And of course, support by Pankaj Tandri, Amit Bharadwaj and Bimal Joshi as well. And of course, Sanjay Deshwal ji, who is unofficially the COO of Vikram Street, Harris Park, or Little India as most people know it. So a big thanks to him also, we call upon him.
Thank you so much everybody for coming, and it's just such a great success to see so many people are turning up to this kind of events where we not only promote non-violence but also we promote sustainability, especially with our clothes. I have made a choice to use dhoti wherever I go. I mean, here I can see Sanjay and everybody wearing a suit. You don't need to wear a suit. You can go with your dhoti and you will get the same respect. And this is what I feel is the best part here, is that Saroni has made sure that this has to be done and that we understand that we are a global citizen and our tradition is also global as we feel. Thank you so much, Saroni. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Indranil, and of course for those of us who are extremely inspired to wear a dhoti, let me tell you, you can wear it, but to keep it on, that's a different skill altogether. Be careful. And of course, for those of you who know how we hound the photographer at every wedding or engagement, we do have a thank you that we'd like to say to Suman Pandey. But before that, of course, Sanjay Deshwal ji, who has always championed the cause of Little India out in Vikram Street and Harris Park. So thank you so much for your support.
Good evening, Consulate General ji and Nimisha ji. Without going into much details, the few things I would like to say quickly. First of all, I have to reply to Indranil. Indranil, you dress so well, you set up so high standards, and you never bring a dress for me. I'm complaining. And secondly, ladies and gentlemen, we all the successful people here, I can see all the smiling faces, my friend, like this. निमिषा जी की पोएम याद आती है यार, वो दावत कहीं भी हो इंडियंस की, वो दावत सब याद करते हैं, तो हम लोग काफी लोग चाय ढूंढ रहे हैं बाहर जाके. So I think so Saroni ji will do. But jokes apart, can we guys please give a standing ovation to Saroni? Please, can you all stand up? I'm so pleased to see her hard work, especially women doing so well. It's a proud for us. In spite of our difficulties, people like us are earning money, earning name, fame, and politics. But people like Saroni keep the art, culture, and Indianness alive. Please, a loud round of applause, please. Saroni,
doing the photographer.
Thank you. Oh yes, Karthik, the best MC.
Thank you, Sanjay ji. I try. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, now I'm about to give you the most important name tonight. And that's the person who makes you look good and who's probably going to give you your pictures as well. It's Suman Pandey from Solid Photography and Mishu from Gold Dust Videography. So hopefully they'll sprinkle some of the professional gold dust onto the videos and images here. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone. Thank you for being here, and I'm gonna beat my own drum that this is my little business I just started after the COVID, and I would request everyone to like my page, follow my page, and if you have any event, birthday, wedding, even if you want to celebrate a divorce, please let me know and I will come and take a picture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Suman, and by no means were you beating your own drum, but you did flash your own shutter, but that's all right, no problem. And of course, we've got Mishu from Gold Dust Photography. Would you like to?
Thank you so much, Saroni, for having me here. It was a secret that actually I admire Gandhi from my childhood. I'm not from India, I'm from Bangladesh, but Gandhi is as important to us as Indians or everyone else around the world. But I'm a very big fan of him because of his very intelligent moves that he made, and it was incredible. And we are as much proud as you. For now, India has him, but we all had him at the beginning. I always love him so much. Non-cooperation and Ahimsa was the best moves he made. I'm very fond of him. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you. And now, the MC and the moderator, Karthik Mohandas. Without him, I cannot imagine Mahatma Peace Symposium. He was a part of it. He's been a pivotal support for me. From Ahimsa Peace Symposium, which was the inaugural one last year, and to now, and I'm sure the future peace symposiums. When I get the venue confirmation, and then I obviously approach Honorable Consul General for his availability and dates, and the next call is to Karthik Mohandas. When is your availability? Are you available on the date? Otherwise, I'm not doing it. So thank you so much, Karthik. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Saroni. And I thought you chose me only because I have the common surname Mohandas, that's all. But having said that, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure emceeing this event for all of you here. Got to hear some fantastic thoughts and views. I'm hoping to hear more when we all meet one-on-one outside. There's fantastic refreshments, chai of course, and some slight snacks. So please make your way outside. Thank you once again from the Saroni Roy Foundation for being a part of this evening. Thank you, and we'll see you next year.